good afternoon, and I'm Sue Curry. For any of you who don't know who I am, I'm the Dean of our great College of Public Health, and always delighted to welcome everyone here this afternoon. And I want to thank you for joining us for this special presentation, which is part of our college's annual Hansen Award events. Earlier today, we heard an amazing talk by Byllye Avery about why Black women's health matters. I can assure you that this afternoon's conversation is going to be equally as enlightening. One of our students who had lunch with us afterward, before Byllye came in, said, "She filled my bucket." And I just thought that was such a wonderful way of expressing how inspired all of us were. So unlike this morning's presentation, for those who were able to be here, this afternoon's session is really designed to be a discussion. The conversation will center around some ideas and practices that Byllye has gathered together in her book called An Altar of Words: Wisdom to Comfort and Inspire African American Women. This is a book of reflections and meditations on a wide variety of topics, such as activism, courage, faith, stillness, and power. We have selected a few passages from Byllye's book, and we will be sharing them with you during the course of the conversation. Now, before we get to that, I actually want to recognize a special guest who is with us today, and that's Nagina Lithcott. And she has just been a marvelous addition to Byllye's visit. We really got a twofer here. And she is Byllye Avery's spouse. Nagina served as a dean of students at Dartmouth and Swarthmore colleges and at Columbia and Boston universities for more than 20 years before retiring in 2011. She has done extensive community organizing for health promotion and disease prevention in African American, urban, Latino urban, and rural white communities. Despite that, this is her first trip to Iowa. Is that right? We're grateful that Nagina took time earlier today to speak with one of our classes in the community and behavioral health about doing public health field work. So thank you for being part of today's events. Now, to introduce two people at the front of the room. First, Byllye Avery is our 2015 recipient of our college's Richard and Barbara Hansen Leadership Award. For more than 40 years, Byllye has been on the front lines of the women's health movement in the United States, leading advocacy, educational, and self-help initiatives to explore how race, gender, and class affect women's health and empowerment. She is the founder of the Black Women's Health Imperative and co-founder of Raising Women's Voices for the Healthcare We Need. Through her work and with these organizations and other initiatives, she continues to document and speak on Black women's health experiences in America, highlighting the effects of factors such as poverty, crime, violence, and racism. Dr. Maisha Marzell joined the University of Iowa as an assistant professor in our Department of Community and Behavioral Health in 2014. Maisha earned her PhD in 2011 in biobehavioral health from the Pennsylvania State University. Her research focuses on an interdisciplinary approach to the prevention of alcohol and drug-related problems among at-risk adolescents and young adults. So please join me now in giving a warm welcome to Byllye and Maisha.
Are we mic'd? Can you hear? Well, I want to start just by thanking you so much for blessing us with your presence here on campus. And I want to take a moment to model what you talk so graciously about in your book, just being. So So I just want to take a moment of silence just to be with you in this presence and come from a place of gratitude, of love, and respect. So just a few seconds. Thank you. It was an honor to read this book. It was an inspiration, and I took it as almost a guide now to go forth and to, in the challenges, in the opportunities, to be healthy, to be strong, to be loving. This book is, wow, you talk about Byllyeisms, I talk about lifeisms. And to know that this is a resource now that I have, and hopefully we will all have in this book as we share today in this moment. So if you could just tell what motivated you, where were you when you had this wisdom to write something like this, and talk a little bit about that.
First of all, I want to thank you, and thank you for being you, and thank you for bringing all of who you are to this work. And just, I like it that you have emotions, and you have power and passion, and you're brave enough to show it. So hold on to that. Good afternoon, everybody. I can't say that there was an aha moment, that I said, oh, I think I'll do a book on a little book. But I do remember back in 81, 82, when we were planning the first national conference on Black women's health issues that we held at Spelman in 83, when I started trying to put everything together with the community of women who were working with me. And I remember having a conversation with Dr. Barbara King. And Dr. Barbara King was she was a giant of a woman, not only in her words and deeds, but also in her stature. She was very tall, like 6'7", really tall. And so, I mean, her presence also kind of made you pay attention, And so I went to her, I guess I was sort of seeking her as a mentor. However, I didn't have that thought. I was just going to talk to Dr. Barbara. And I wanted her to be on the program that we were having, and wanted to get on her schedule, because she was a social worker who stopped being a social worker, and she founded a church. And her church was non-denominational. And she was in Atlanta, and it was just a real different kind of church. Because y'all remember the time when people used to dress up to go to church? You had your Sunday clothes, and you had your regular clothes. And then people started wearing anything to church. And Dr. Barbara was one of those people who said, you don't have to dress up to come to my church. I want you, not your clothes. And so she just had a kind of take that was different. So I went to her and laid out my idea of this conference that we wanted to have. And we wanted to bring women in from all over the country, et cetera, et cetera. And so she said to me, well, Byllye, what are you going to tell them? And so I said, well, we're going to give them health information. And I kind of laid out this spiel that I'd given to everybody else that they thought sounded pretty good. She said, well, Byllye, you can't even think about bringing people here from California to tell them. That's when the 9 warning signs of cancer, that was the big deal. She said they can get that information in California. So why do they need to come here to you? She said, if you're going to bring people here, you have to give them something else. Well, to tell you the truth, I had no idea what that something else was supposed to be. And so I had to go get some guidance as to what should that be. And over time, I figured out it had to be something that made everything else work. What did you call it again? A formula, whatever the thing is that makes two things better.
Foment, something with foment.
Foments, right. And I kind of call it the glue, that will hold everything together. And I kept wondering, what would be this glue? Because I figured it had to be out of the hard information area. That it had to be something bigger than us, something larger than us. And so that's how I sort of drifted into the whole spirituality. Well, in the women's movement, we got into a lot of things. And one of the things we got into was women's spirituality, with the woman sign in the middle of it, and all of that whole bit. So I've been looking at all of the other ways in which we could celebrate who we are and what all existed outside of organized religion. Because I'll just come clean with y'all. I'm not. I grew up in the AME church, yep. And but somewhere along the line, I got kind of disillusioned with organized religion, and especially some of the people who were running it. And I sort of pulled away. But my mother was born an AME, and she died an AME, and she was wed in the wood and everything. So I grew up in that kind of household, but became a little disillusioned and said, well, I've got to kind of figure out what's spiritual for me, what feeds my soul, what works for me, and kind of came to the conclusion that I could talk directly to higher power myself, that I didn't necessarily feel like I had to have a go-between, and that I would be all right. And so I can remember thinking about words. And I like words. I do crossword puzzles every single day of my life. It's the first thing I do when I have, I take that hour for myself, and I take the first hour of the day so that I make sure I get it in when everybody else is sleeping, because that's my time, and my crossword puzzle is one of the things I do. So I like Scrabble. So I'm a little obsessed with words. I always thought words were very important. And so I was asked if I would be interested in doing a book. And so I didn't really know, and I didn't have any ideas. And then the sisters kept saying to me, why don't you write us a little spirituality book, something we can read, and something that's got short paths. They kind of lined it out for me exactly what they wanted. And so I came up with this idea of doing a little book. And the way I had it in my mind is a sister could get on the bus, and she could open it up and read a passage, and by the time the bus got to her bus stop, she had her hit for the day. It's kind of like that word a day thing, that daily word, that kind of thing. So as I started to think about the words, I thought about the words that I heard in our self-help groups and what they meant to me. And after a while, I needed more words. And so I would, whenever I was traveling around and speaking, I would tell folks that I was working on this book. And if they wanted me to include a word, to write it down on a piece of paper, and I would give them a credit in the book. So when you look in there, you'll see from the Santa Barbara conference, so by his name, and da-da-da from all of these places. So I'm so glad I did that, because I got words that I would have never thought of, like systonomics. I never would have thought of that as a word, and death, and just different words than you see every day. And so I ask people to, when you're reading the words that I've written, reflect on what these words mean for you, so that you're kind of getting a double dose at the same time. And then end with an affirmation. I'm a firm believer of affirmations. And if you got to write them down and put them on your mirror, if you got to write them, do it. Affirm every day, that something will happen. And so when I knew anything, I'd put the little book together. And my writing process was I would work on a word, and then I would walk in the mornings, and I'd think of another word and what it meant, and I'd go home and jot that down. And before the end of the day, I'd go back and work on the other word, So I was working them like this, kind of back and forth. And I think I did it in about 8 or 9 months, because I took time to think about it and to use the women's books of quotes. That was a wonderful source, because it gave me a lot to think about, etc. So that's sort of how it came about.
Yeah, when I read it first, I wanted to take pause. You're my kindred mother in many ways. That's the first thing I do in the morning is do my crossword too. In fact, I've gotten in such a habit that I do the USA Today, and I finally just moved up to the master level, which I'm very happy.
Oh, wow.
Only for about I give myself 10 minutes, and then I switch back to the regular. But now it's so addictive in a positive way that I get up at 3:30 because I know that's when it comes.
Oh my goodness! You really got it
I
there.
know, I do. But it's my moment now.
Yeah,
it's I think we all find different ways to meditate and to find our center and to find our spiritual center. And be it a walk that you shared, be it a crossword, or be it praying, going to the altar, as you so eloquently put it in this book. Can you speak to some of the reactions that you got from individuals that you've touched with this book, of really giving them, you talked a lot about this morning, of being that model, being a model of health.
Right.
And I think that a lot of the passages in this book really spoke to being still, giving yourself self-love. I think so many times we want to go and help everyone else that we forget we have to restore ourselves before we go out. And that spirituality of making that a discipline. We speak of that, of praying, of meditation as in the religious context, but you can have a spiritual discipline that gives that soul, a recharge, and to go out and help the people and to love people from a public health perspective or just a humanistic perspective. So I lost my question, but go with me.
I got it.
You got it. Okay.
I got it. Well, I think it's very important that we learn how to fill our own wells. That a lot of us function as empty wells because we give and we give and we give and we give and we get totally depleted. And then we feel put upon, and everything is too much. It's just too much. And we live in a very, very stressful society. If you don't think our society is stressful, you go to some of the places where people are not worried about as many things as we are worried about. And you can just see how more relaxed they are, or how relaxed you feel, or you're not in such a hurry to go anywhere. I can remember being in Australia and being with the Aborigines. And these are people we can learn a lot from. I mean, they just don't tolerate stress very well. When they move like to Sydney and all of that, they start drinking and their bodies can't metabolize alcohol well, and they just become different people. But when you visit them in Alice Springs and some of the other places, if they're coming to see you and something else happens on the way that they'd rather be doing, they go do whatever they'd rather be doing, and then they get to see you. They're not pressed because I told you I'd be there at 8 o'clock, that I have to be there. They said I'll be there. And that means they'll be there. And you have to have some patience with waiting. And so it was just a lot to learn in that lesson, that they put what they need to do first, rather than what other people necessarily need them to be doing. One of the things that we ask is that people have an altar that can be a little sacred place. You can make it plain, you can make it elaborate. Have you ever noticed when you go into like Asian places, they have a little altar? You go to the nail salon, there's a little altar with fruit, candles, incense, something that speaks of the other world of us, that brings in the good energy. So we have an altar at our house, and Ingina is the caretaker of the female ancestors in our family, and it's just a nice. As a matter of fact, we have like a whole little altar room, and it's just nice to know that that is a sacred space. And I'm getting a little choked up, but if you ever need to have a moment, that's a good place to go, you know. Somebody make you really angry and you're about to do something stupid or say something that you got to go back and apologize for. Just walking in that room sort of takes away a lot of that with the calmness and the peacefulness. So you don't have to have a room, you just have a little place. And you just might want to put a candle there and a picture, or a candle there and a bowl of fruit. When I was on book tour, I would make an altar at each of the readings, and then I would explain the meaning of the things I had there. And I always had a bowl of water. I always had water. I had a little candle, and I always have some sort of thing like fruit or something, because these are the main things that we need to nourish our bodies and our spirit. And I felt that that was always real important to have that with me. And I just think that these are some of the ways in which we can calm ourselves down as we live in this very stressful society. And it's getting even more stressful. I mean, I don't know what happens to us every time we hear bad news of a shooting or of some of these things. It does a number on your head. You can't act like you're not affected by it. We all are affected by it, you know, plus all the other stuff, you know, that we're dealing with. So I think another thing that that we would do is at the Black Women's Health Project, sometimes we build an altar and we ask people to put verbal words from where they sit on the altar. You know, you just might call out a word, put it on the altar. Or either a lot of our sessions, at the beginning of our sessions, we would ask people to put things on the physical altar that we have there, and they would explain why they're putting them there. This was my grandmother's ring, and I'm putting it on the altar in honor of her, or to bring her and her presence, her feelings, her thoughts, her being into the room, into the space. It really makes a difference. I talked this morning about the intuition and all that happens around birth. And have many of you had the opportunity to either be at a natural childbirth or give birth naturally, that the whole aura and all that is in the room is a divine space. It's different from the space right outside, because birth is one of the most powerful acts that we can engage in. And so I try to say to women, connect to this. You're never going to have another experience like this. Don't go through it being scared like I was. Embrace it. You can do this. But the energy in the room of a birth is just a really, I don't know how to explain it any other way. It's magical. It's the most creative forces, you know, that we have. And we are all open. We are all like real vulnerable and open. And I can remember I understood birth and death at the same time, all about the breath. All about the breath, that first breath that a child takes all the way to the last breath that a human makes is what is life, and it's so sacred. And I think sometimes we forget what is really going on here. What a miracle. And I think I'm getting a little off topic, but it's all these things to me that make health, that make us be, that make us have respect for ourselves and for others, and creates a sacred space, which I think is absolutely, absolutely necessary. You forgot the question, and I don't know if I answered it. But anyway, maybe that's the way this conversation is going. Somewhere we'll meet by the end of the time.
Well, I thought when you were talking, I also thought it's been a pleasure to hear you talk, and to not just hear the words that you're saying, but actually hear you talk. So maybe, because I want to get other people to have this conversation with you, we can move into a couple of slides, because I could only imagine what it was like when you were doing the book tour, and to hear a reading from the author and the power of that. Because I also want to say I love that with this book, and you'll see from some of the passages that we go over, you are defining the word for yourself. Like you said, it's not just the Webster Dictionary form of this word. It's what it meant to you in that moment, and what the message and the inspiration that you wanted to give to others. But you did call, like you are a caller of action. And in this book, you lead the reader to, as they're walking to their own altar, whatever that might be, to take that word and to reflect on it. And that is very, very powerful, because one word can mean so differently to another person. And I've become one that's become very mindful of that, because what I'm thinking, I'm saying, might not necessarily be what I'm conveying. What something means to me might not necessarily be that person's experience. So to be in a place of not judging that, but then also trying to be there. And so this practice of doing that is very powerful. And I think that this, again, is a guide for that type of process in a world where we automatically assume that people should know what we think and believe. We automatically assume that they should be in the place that we're at. And we haven't walked their shoes, and they haven't walked ours.
And people like you, and people in powerful positions, need to be careful of what they say to people, because your words can either direct a person and move them, or it can paralyze them. And words are very important. And we had to unlearn the mantra that the slaves used: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We're not in that situation. That's the armor that people had to put on to stop the oppression. But we're not walking around with that armor on now. And words are real important. And you never know, as Maisha says, how they fall on people's ears, how they fall on them, how they inspire them, how they say that. And we all have power. We have a tremendous amount of personal power. And one of the ways that power is expressed is through what you all are doing now. You are paying attention. Attention is a powerful commodity. A powerful commodity. And that's when you discipline a child and people said, time them out. Don't give them attention. People will do anything in the world to get negative attention, even if they get negative attention after they are dead. Attention is that valuable that they will do anything to get attention. So as people who are sitting in powerful positions as you are, know that you all have personal power. You all have a lot of personal power, and it can influence people in ways that you will never believe until somebody walks up to you 20 years later and says, oh yeah, remember when you said so and so and so and so? Well, that motivated me to do this and to do these other things. It's incredible. But just remember that if you take nothing else away from this, that we all have power, even little kids, and they start learning it when they're 2 years old. Remember the terrible twos and no? That's the first time, except you like my daughter when she was first born, I tried to feed her some food and it came, So she had hers right away. So early on, people learn that they have power. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, yes, please. Just a couple phrases and then we'll get into some conversation with the audience. But as we get this going, I want to take another step with the power of words that we hit upon this a little bit last night. And I think in a time where we're having a dialogue right now, and the importance of your visit too is to spark a dialogue, to call that action, that words do have power, but we can't become paralyzed in not being able to talk.
Right.
And I think that it's okay to hurt feelings every now and then if you come in a place where you can forgive or to have that conversation. So I hear the power in what you're saying, but it made me have pause because I feel that sometimes we become so careful with our words and so careful with our words around race, so careful with our words around gender and sexual orientation that we are becoming a nation that doesn't really have those meaningful or those deep dialogues because we're so scared of words, because we know the power of words.
Yeah.
So how do you understand your power? How do you understand the power of words, but how do you go there and have the conversations that are going to step on toes, that are going to be uncomfortable, but to keep moving forward?
Right. What we have to do is you first have to establish trust, and you have to understand, by and large, and I'm not saying there are not bigots in the world, I'm certainly not saying that, because goodness knows they're there. The average person with good common sense wants to do the right thing. You have to accept that as a premise. If you believe everybody is racist, who white or black or Latino or Asian or whatever, there's probably a little bit of it in all of us. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we want to do what's right. And what I want to know is if I say something that is not right, that you trust me enough that you can say to me, Byllye, I disagree with that. And raise my conscience. Take the risk. Take the risk that I will hear you. Take the risk that I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to do anything. And I need to do that with you. And people need to be clear and say, stay here with me. Help me get this. And you might not get it all at the one time because we have a lot of unaware racism plus a lot of aware racism. And the aware stuff has started coming out with the election of Barack Obama that you will never seen. I'll be kind of glad when he gets out of office because, Lord, I have to pray for him every night. And I just hope this man lives through this whole thing. I don't know about y'all, but I worry about him. I really do. And I don't want to have to do that. But, that's the way we are. But we have to be able to engage with each other and struggle. Because people don't want to struggle oftentimes. They just want to say what they say. And I tell you, social media is one good thing, but I'm telling you, it is a haven for cowards. People say anything they want to say, and you don't know who said it, and they say very hurtful things, and it's just awful. That part of it It's just awful. And so if we're going to move past it, as I said, one of the big jobs we have to do is to learn how to live and play and work together. That is what our charge is as a human race. Can we do that? And we can't do it all the time by being scared. So suck it up and say this and say, help me with this. I'm struggling with this. A lot of talk comes up around the N-word. That's a big one. Who can say it? Who can't say it? What does it mean to young people? What does it mean to old people? Should we use it? Blah, blah, blah. There's always this conversation, But we have to have those conversations. We have to have them not only in our homes, but we have to have them outside with each other. And so I say, be willing to struggle, but just know that you're going to keep your hands on me. You're not going to leave me, Maisha, just because I got this wrong over here. You're going to hang in here and see the good in my heart and the good in my soul. That's what speaks louder than anything else. What are your intentions?
And you bring up a really good point, too, of working together and coming together, and that the majority of us, the average person, does have that common goal, that common good.
Absolutely.
I would always, on an athletic team, and I was always with the team, and I would say, look, we don't always have to get along. And in fact, I might not like you, and you might not like me, and that's okay. I have sisters that I love, but I don't necessarily like them. But we are going to get this baton around the track.
Right.
And you know what?
Right.
Because we are going to get it, because there is that end goal.
Right.
And with my sisters, no matter what, if anything went down, I'm right there for them. And so we have to get into a space where we are all different. And sometimes we don't have to explain why we might not necessarily like what the other person is doing, but as long as it's not a place of hurt, we're going to be okay.
Pain, right.
And
you have to be able to forgive.
Yes.
I can remember Martin Luther King was he spoke at my college twice while I was there. He was a Founders Day speaker, and he was my graduation speaker. His Founders Day speech was about the 3 types of love: erotic, platonic, and redemptive love. And I think the first 2 explain themselves. With redemptive love, and I went to college in 55, so this was in 56, 57 that he came to speak. Civil rights movement was just, bubbling, just getting started. And he said to us, the greatest of these 3 is redemptive love. The greatest. And so we were saying, well, what does that mean? He looked at us and he said, you have to forgive white people for all of the horrible things they have done to us as a race of people. Well, the room just went, I mean, people were like very upset that he was suggesting. And he said, you have to do it because that's the only way that you can be released. And he said, you have to start holding people accountable for what they do, not for what their granddaddies and all their ancestors and all them people back there did. They don't have any influence over what they did either, but they do have influence over what they do today. And he said, that's who you are dealing with. And he says, as long as you don't do that, we'll always be enslaved. You'll be a slave in your mind, if not in your body, And so I have really tried to keep that, especially as you deal with forgiveness, and what a trap forgiveness is. It's not forgiving people is letting someone sit right in, have a prime seat in your head. They like sitting right in front stage in your head. Because you're constantly thinking about what they did to you and how mad you are, and you're obsessed with that. So why do you want to give them prime property in your mind? If for no other reason, it's worth that because of the release. So you have to be able to deal with the redemptive love part, because that's where the work is. That's what's hard. And you have to be able to see redeeming qualities in everybody. And I'm not saying don't be a fool now. You can, you know what I mean? Don't take this to the crazy extreme. I mean, you have to, you have to think about this, but you have to get it to a place where we can all coexist peacefully.
All right, we'll do one, and I think then we'll turn it over to the audience. But
Okay.
is there one that just speaks to you?
Let me talk about one that you might not have picked out.
Okay, here's the book.
I did a little piece for a word that I thought that I really like pretty much most of them, but one called Systonomics, and you mentioned that yesterday in the car. And Systonomics is a word that was given to me by a woman named Akua Budu Watkins. She lives in Detroit, and she, of course, she made the word up, PQRS. She made the word up. But it was when Ngina first went to Swarthmore. And we were, you know how they got to get your house ready, and also they put you up in the B&B on campus. And so we were there, and I started talking to the woman who was the housekeeper. And she was telling me the story of her life and what she was doing. And you'll hear about it in this piece, okay? Systonomics. My friend Anna works as a maid in a downtown office building. I didn't put in the Swarthmore bed and breakfast, I mean. She cleans and dusts the desk of college-educated men and women, notes their comings and goings, and hears of their promotions. Anna has also sent 4 of her children to college with little financial aid, a lot of courage, and endless faith in them and herself. Many women with more do a lot less. Sister Akua coined this term Systonomics to refer to the skills of women like Anna who do big things with little money. In earlier times, these women, in addition to a day's work, took in washing and ironing to make extra money. Somehow, they figured out how to manage their money and take advantage of opportunities presented to them by the universe. A way out of nowhere, making a lot out of a little, establishing priorities, combining discipline, wisdom, and faith. Silent prayers are constantly uttered for strength and guidance, always looking forward to a better day. This dedication promotes healing, energizes the soul, and lifts our spirits. Mothers can realize their dreams through their children's accomplishments and provide the welcome amen. So be it, Ashe. As you put Systonomics on the altar, say a prayer of thanksgiving for all those women who made sacrifices so you could have a better day. And the affirmation is, I am powerful and completely capable of setting a goal and reaching it. The quote is from Hedga Bijar. The fragrance always remains on the hand that hands the rose. I am always amazed by maids who have put their kids through school. Who I remember one of the women I worked with said, you know what? I make $50,000 a year, and Mama works as the janitor at school, and she's always got $20 to give me. So that's in honor of those women who made those sacrifices, and for a lot of us who are sitting in these rooms. They made them for us. So maybe we should have some.
Yeah, so turn it over to the audience.
And I'm willing to talk about the words too, so. Come on, y'all. Somebody want to testify, do something. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for sharing. I really enjoyed hearing some of your words. And I was at the Black Women in Wellness Conference in Atlanta, where you received an award there as well. So congratulations on,
Thank you.
your recent awards. I just wanted to see if you had any general words for wisdom for Black graduate students here at the University of Iowa, especially Black women.
I think you need to first get to know as many of the Black women graduate students that you can find. And it's got to be more than one. I know there's a lot more here. But you really need to form yourselves a support group where you can come and have you a well that you can help feed each other. Try to meet once or twice a month. I know y'all are busy. Everybody running around being crazy, doing everything in the world. But take this as some time for yourself. And this has worked with many groups. We've told that to young medical women who are in medical school, especially when I was in Gainesville, and this is for Black and white women and all, get you a support group. You don't have to go this road all by yourself. And some of the issues you're dealing with, somebody in the group has already dealt with them. And you know what I mean? You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you got to know each other. And for heaven's sake, don't be passing each other and not speaking to each other and not knowing who you are. You got to do it. You have to do it. You have to know each other, and you have to care about it enough to organize it. Somebody got to organize it. You know, and you get tired of organizing all the things all the time. But if you want it bad enough, you have to do it. You have to do it. That's what you have to do. You have to get together and talk with each other. Hi, Billy.
I have enjoyed you today, yesterday, earlier today. I had a question from this morning. Your women's health, and there are a lot of things that you fight for when you're younger, like child rearing and childbearing.
Right.
But when you get older, there's a whole different concept.
Yeah.
How do you get doctors and the people in public health to realize that not every pain you have when you're an older adult is because you're getting older? Yes, for some reason, doctors now that I've found, when I have an ache, they say, "Oh, just because you're getting older," as opposed to maybe you need a massage, maybe there's a little a little pain, that little muscle that's hurting, a little spasm.
Right.
They always want to either inject you with cortisone or instead of giving you maybe a little exercise or.
Right.
How do you get that across to the world that just getting older doesn't mean that you have to be filled with medicine?
I think we have to not be afraid to have those conversations with doctors, that it won't be the first time that we have educated doctors. I can remember back in the early days when we wanted access to our records, they didn't want us to have our records. When we wanted to know what was in this medicine, they didn't want us to know that. When we didn't want to meet them in a paper gown, we wanted to have our clothes on. When we wanted to be addressed, we've been teaching doctors forever. So we have to keep teaching them. We have to keep teaching them, because if they don't get these things, they're not teaching them in medical school. So where else they gonna get them? So just don't be afraid. Just say to them, not every pain I have can mean that I need a cortisone shot. Now, if I have this pain for months and months and months and it's gonna go away, maybe I will, but can't you tell me some other way to deal? She is like, got the answer. All right.
Byllye just spoke to something that's really a button for me. So I want to continue on, and I have changed doctors because of that comment, that dismissive comment, because I need a partner to work with me and be respectful of what I'm saying and to tune into that. So I have taught my children since they were knee-high to a duck that they need to talk to the doctor or the nurse, and the doctor doesn't need to suck up to me because I'm paying the bill. They need to respond to what my child is saying. Now they're young adults. So I have changed doctors. I think that's where it starts,
Right,
to let
right.
them know that that's not tolerated. That's a
Right.
very dismissive comment, and it's been said to me many times. And I no longer work with those healthcare professionals that
Good for
treat
you.
me that way.
Good for you. Good for you. I can remember one woman saying that she was trying to ask the doctor about her pregnancy, and he said, "Oh, that's none of your business. You know, that's my business. You know, if your pregnancy is not your business, I want to know what is, you know?" And so we just have to keep educating them. You know, they still learn. Learning is a whole process, you know? You never get it all. You kill in the process of learning when you die. You're learning how to die. That's the last thing you learn how to do, you know? So learning goes on.
Thank you both so much. I'd like to know what you think makes a good ally. What would you like to see in an ally?
I'd like to see a person who first knows how to do active listening. And to be there, sometimes people just need to discharge and don't need you to fix everything, and don't need you to feel like it's you, don't need you to feel put upon, don't need you to do anything, but just listen. Just listen. Because you are giving them the commodity of attention. That's one thing. The second thing is to make it your business to try to understand what a person is saying. Not only what the words are and what's coming out of their mouth, but what they're feeling in their heart and in their soul. And then the third thing is ask, how can I be an ally to you? What do I need to do to be a true ally? And then something that Ngina mentioned this morning about the ministry of presence. And sometimes just being there and sitting quietly is affirming, you know. So the ministry of presence is very important in ally building. And know that everything is not about you. That's the other thing.
Just looking at the, you have the term power, and then you have some wording to, explain that. And I was just looking at it, and I realized, like, when we think of power, we always think that we have to get more power so that we can influence people around us to have them to do what we need or to get where we need to be. But I just realized that that's maybe not the case. Maybe, we ought to focus more on capacities, our capacities, because our capacities helps us to grow, and we can grow to the point that we can weather the storm.
Right.
How would you say that over your travels and your lectures, how do you feel we're doing in that area?
We're getting there. We're learning. We're learning that we have the personal power, and that it's not about somebody being powerless and me being powerful. It's about all of us being powerful, and that it really is okay for all of us to have that power and to tap into it. And I feel that people are a lot better about it, but then, I kind of say individually as Americans, we are wonderful, but collectively we stink. You know what I mean? Collective action, like what's going on with all of these shootings, with the guns, and we are afraid to assert our power. If I see that statistic that 83% of Americans think that there should be some sort of rulings around gun laws and all of that, well, why aren't we showing that at the ballot box? Why aren't we showing that? Where is our power? So you see, having it individually is one thing, but how do we amass it collectively as a people? We don't really know how to do that yet. Or we're not doing it. And why are we so afraid? Is it because they got the guns or what? But they can't kill all of us at one time, And I think that collectively we don't know our power, and sometimes that gets in the way of us feeling our individual power, But collectively we're not doing too good on that. And I hope as these people are crisscrossing Iowa, As I ask you all to ask them about what do they plan to do with helping us get the other states, the 19 that's not covering doing Medicaid expansion, what they plan to do, but also what do they plan to do around guns? I think that that's an issue, and I don't usually like single issues because I don't think we exist in a vacuum, but that's an issue if we don't. It's so destructive. And where are we going? I can remember back in the 50s, when televisions first started coming into the home, my mother's best friend, Miss Florence Henry, said to my mother, Matt Dillon kills somebody every Saturday night. And he did. And that started that whole killing on television and you can't tell me it doesn't have an effect on us to see that. You can't I don't believe that, So I just think somehow we got to switch our culture around so that we feel the power that we have in some of the national conversations and decisions that we make. Yes.
Again, oh, sorry, there you go. Hello again. My name is Sade, and I had mentioned earlier this morning that I study Black women's communication. And one thing I've encountered when focusing my research on Black women is, why do you just study Black women? Why not just women? Or why not women of color? Or how do you think Black women's experiences relate to such and such group or such and such group? And I wonder if you ever have encountered comments where people somehow try to invalidate some of your research or always question why, or ask, why just Black women? Why just Black women's health? As if it's not good enough. And what are your responses to them?
Well, I make no excuses. I'm a Black woman. We need to know what's going on in our lives. Nobody ever cared to talk about our health before we started talking about Black women's health. It wasn't even a term. You know what I'm saying? And so I make no apologies. And I really, quite frankly, anyway, and I say, why not? Because we can get information that, we are not all the same. We don't all have the same lives. We don't all have the same advantages. We are not the same. There are differences. And it's okay for us to point out those differences. We have different perspectives. We have different lived experiences. And what's so hard for people sometimes is when they hear what we really think is happening, and it's like they just can't fathom how we could see the world so differently. But we, Black people and other people of color, see the world and experience the world different than white people. We worry about stuff that white people don't even think about. They don't even think about it. And when you bring it up, they say, oh, now I see what you mean. So, leave me alone. I'm doing this. You want to go study all the rest of the people in the world, then you go study them. But this is what I'm doing, and I make no apologies for it at all.
Okay. I think then we will, unless there's any more questions, I want to get, Newt.
What's your approach to apathy?
Try to wake people up.
Yeah.
What is going to wake you up? That's what I've been trying to do for the last 30 years. Wake up. The most important thing that we have, the one thing that we have to connect all us as human beings is health. And that's why I chose to organize around health. If you can't understand health, then you can't understand anything else. And I say to all these politicians who are against people getting health care, they all been sick. They've all had pain. They all have families that need health care. Take their health care away and see how they'll feel. And then I have trouble if they can't understand that. I just don't get it at all. But we got to wake up. And I don't know how far we need to be pushed to the brink before we wake up. You know, I don't know why people haven't taken to the streets behind what's happening in healthcare all around the country. We are each other's keepers. Whether or not we want to be, we are. Just the way it is. So, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Well, we are going to have refreshments outside, and
Okay.
thank you again for coming, and thank you for sharing all of your pearls of wisdom. And I know we are awake right now.
All right.